So first of all, I really thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I talked to Pastor Steve about this just a few minutes ago. I want to show you what I do, right? That's what I do as a coach. And then I want to talk to you about creating a culture of success. And then I'm going to give you my testimony so you can kind of see how I'm wired or what I do and why I do it. And then maybe from my testimony, realize how I do it or how I actually pull it off. Maybe, I don't know. So you mentioned about our wives keeping us honest sometimes. My wife, actually, I was supposed to speak at 11, okay? And gladly, Dave was able to move me to this time slot. Because on Thursday or Friday, even Friday morning, I think it was, I asked Dave, she says, you're speaking at what time on Saturday? I go, 11. Well, you got practice Saturday morning, right? And I go, yeah, I'm good. She goes, no, you're not. You'll never make it. I go, no, I got it. She goes, I know you. I add an hour to everything that you tell me you're going to be at, right? So I know, so you're not going to make it. You need to change it. And she was right. I would have not even got close to making it, right? So we do need to listen to our wives sometimes, all right? So anyway, so again, a pleasure to be here. The reason that I'm starting with this, creating a culture of success, is because I was asked to speak about 12 years ago to a national convention for rowing coaches, high school, club, and college rowing coaches. And first of all, the success that people are talking about is we've won 17 of 18 ACC championships at Virginia. There's been 22 NCAA championships. We finished in the top 4 11 times, and we've won it twice. All right, so that's the success people talk about. I don't necessarily measure the success by wins, but that's what they want me to talk about. So I thought about it, and I go, what is that? What is a culture of success? What does that mean? I had no real hard and fast words about that or anything. I just did it. Okay, led by the Lord, no doubt about it, but I didn't have it written down. So what I did, and I left a bunch of those on the back chair there on your way out the left-hand doors. What I did was, I said, I'm going to send an email out. I'm going to send that email to all the parents of our past parents and present parents of kids in our team, all the kids in our team, and all our alumni. There's about 650 people that went out email blast. And I asked them, I said, I got to give this talk at this convention in a couple of months, and I got to know what to talk about. So what I want to know from you guys is, why have we been successful? So within 3 days, I had 278 emails back out of the 650 or something I sent out. I should have asked for money, right? Yeah, because that's a pretty good percentage of a return on an email, right? That's uncanny. And in those 278 emails I got back, there was a theme that kept coming through in all those emails of why we'd had success. And so I just basically put it in that document, just bullet points, and then I started looking at those themes time and time again that just kept coming out, time after time. And this is what I come up with, all right? Everybody knows who Tony Bennett is. None of you guys, except for 1 or 2, know who I am, all right? But Tony Bennett, everybody knows who he is. He has 5 pillars of success, right? I don't even know what they are, but one of them is servanthood, one is humility. Anybody else know what they are? Can help me out here? There's a few, hard work, that kind of thing. So he's got them posted everywhere, like in his locker room, actually on their uniforms, embedded in the back of their uniforms. He's got it everywhere. Tony Bennett's a strong Christian, right? Unbelievable guy. We have a Bible study in his office every Wednesday at noon with several coaches in him, right? It's a fantastic time for us. And so what I needed to do is I needed to write these things down, okay? And I'll just go through them really quick. Caring, respect, passion, fun, humility, balance, hard work, and servanthood. Those are the things that came out in those emails that were sent back to me. So I'm going to go over what that means to me as a leader, right? So I'm talking about leadership now, all right? And everybody's a leader in some way. They're a leader in their households, they're a leader in their jobs, they're a leader in their churches, they're a leader in their coaching Little League or Y basketball, whatever. Somewhere in your life, you're a leader. So I just happen to lead. I have 93 women on my team right now. 93 women. Let that sink in for just a second. All right? Okay? All right. Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you a quick story. I switched over, I coached men for 17 years. And then I switched to women when we went to varsity status at Virginia. We actually got status of where we were supported versus raising all of our own funds and that type of thing. I switched over to women. After about 2 or 3 years of coaching women, I came home. We're sitting at the dinner table. My son was like 14 or so. My daughter's 13, and my wife were sitting at the dinner table talking about our day and stuff like that, right? And so I announced that it was a good practice that day and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, you guys? I think I got women figured out, right? And both my wife and my daughter, on cue, spit their food out, right? They just went like that, right? So obviously I hadn't gotten women figured out, right? And still don't, right? So anyway, I came up with these ideas, or these things, and I want to talk about each one of them just briefly. So caring, and you probably heard this adage before, if people that you're leading know that you care about them, they'll do anything for you. That's not the reason you care about them. There's not an ulterior motive, all right? I'll care and then I'll be able to get whatever I want. That's not why. But if you do truly care about them, they will do anything because they know that you have their best interests in heart. What I said to them this morning after practice, we've absolutely killed them this week, okay? All week, right? And I got them together after practice this morning and said, you guys, when I say something tough to you, when I call you out, when I say you can do more, right? It's truth and love. Know that from me, okay? And they're nodding. They knew it. Even though it's hard to hear sometimes, like you need to do more, you can do better, that's not good enough, right? Hold them accountable. They know you care. Truth and love, it works. Respect. We talk about all the time on our team about respect, all right? That you respect everyone. You respect the people that clean your bathrooms, the people that your coaches, your teammates, the president of the university, the athletic director, the president of the United States. It doesn't matter. Everybody's trying to do their job. Everybody's doing the best job they can. You respect them for what they do, no matter what it is. Doesn't matter. So I tell them, I know all the housekeepers and custodians by name in the athletic department, every one of them. I think I'm the only one that does, right? So from a standpoint of like, I say, hey, Mike, hey, Susie, hey, how's it going? I don't know them intimately, but at least I know their name, and I want to get to know them more, right? So if our kids see that, kids on our team see me go by and say, hey, Mike, how's it going? Knowing everybody, knowing what they're doing, what their struggles are, and I said to Mike the other day, I said, you got this floor, this whole floor, and there's about 4 or 5 kids standing around. I said, you got to clean this whole floor? And he goes like, yeah, and I go, man, that's a tough job, right? I think those kids listen to that. They do. And when you preach respect and you show it as a leader, they're going to pick up on it as well. One of the things that's really key is that I say to the kids all the time, these types of things. And then last spring, we had a bus driver for one of our trips, 7-hour bus ride, right? 50 kids packed in a 52 passenger, It's not a pleasant environment. I drive the truck and trailer with the boats. I stay out of the tin can with estrogen, all right? I stay out of it, right? Okay? But anyway, the bus driver said to me afterwards, he said, Coach, he's a Southwest Virginia guy. He says, Coach, I've been driving a bus for 42 years. I've never seen a more respectful and nice group of people in my life. And I go, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I tell them that, right? I tell them that. I tell them when a rival coach comes up to me and said, you guys just kicked our butts, but you guys did it with class, right? Or a housekeeper at the hotel said, your kids are so nice, so respectful, And then I tell that back to them. Okay, I reinforce that. And I say to them, when I say those kinds of things back to them, I say, you know what? Yeah, we got to win races. I get fired if we don't, right? But this is more important to me than winning races, what you just exhibited right there. So respect is a big deal. And I'll tell you a quick story about this, too. We're getting honored at the White House, South Lawn of the White House in 2010, okay? And so we're taking a bus up, and there was like 20 teams from across the country that are getting honored for winning a national championship, all right? So we got a 2-hour bus ride, and people are flying from California, Hawaii, whatever, They won a national championship, 20 different teams. And this kid taps me on the shoulder on the bus ride and says, so Kevin, we're going to meet the president. I go, yeah. So you're talking about you respect a housekeeper to the president of the United States, doesn't matter. And I go, yep. So she says, we should respect him, huh? And I go, it'd be a good idea, And so we're standing there, and we're out waiting for the president to come out. And we're on the South Lawn, the band's playing, stuff like that. He comes out and speaks for about 3 or 4 minutes. That was it. And I'm going like, really? Like we came 2 hours, just 3 or 4 minutes, really? and people came from California and flew across and all that kind of stuff, and that's 3 or 4 minutes, that's all we get? I'm thinking that, right? But then he comes off the podium, and he stood with Secret Service people around him, right? And he shook hands and had selfies taken for 45 minutes with every kid that was there. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It was so cool. So I'm sitting back, right? And I'm like waiting, like I'm not going to do that. And I'm thinking, like, how many chances do you get to meet the President of the United States? Not very many, right? So at the very end, I walk up to President Obama. I walk up to him. He's a skinny dude, man. Have you ever seen him? Like he's like 6 feet tall, about $150. Got a crazy lefty J though. He's really good, right? But anyway, so I come up to him, and I was kind of startled by how thin he was, but he's fairly tall. And I shook his hand, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You're not an athlete." And I went, "Excuse me?" Like that. I was kind of offended, right? I go, "What? Pretty good athlete, And he goes, "I mean, not now," like that. And I go, "Oh, no, I'm a coach." He goes, "What sport?" And I go, "Rowing." And he goes, "Whoa, that's a tough sport." I go, "Yes, it is. And you, sir, have a tough job." And he goes, "Yes, I do." So pretty cool story. Anyway, respect, passion. Like, Pastor Steve have passion? I can tell just by how he spoke and introduced me, he's got passion. What does that make? What kind of difference does that make when he's preaching the gospel with passion? Okay? Huge difference. Huge. Okay? When he brings it with everything he has because he's passionate about what he's teaching, what he's preaching, it's a huge difference. So I bring passion to my job every day. Every day. And I tell them all the time, if I don't have passion, you call me out on it, right? Or you help me, lift me up. Somebody's going to have passion every day, right? Really important. Fun. People say, well, how come I didn't put fun first? We got to take care of the other stuff first before we have fun, right? But we really do have fun. I tell them all the time, I can make a heck of a lot more money, right, doing other things than I could coaching rowing, right? So I'm doing this for a reason. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it because I have fun with it. Humility. So having that humility, I tell them all the time, humble and hungry. No matter what you've done, right? You stay humble and hungry for the next task, you'll get it done. You'll make it happen. So we talk about that all the time. We have a big sign. So humble and hungry is one of my monikers I talk about all the time. And we have a big sign. And you might have seen it on the video behind our boathouse, the door they walk in every day. And it's grateful for everything, entitled to nothing, grateful for everything. So I coach at a secular institution, a fairly liberal, progressive, secular institution, okay? So how do I share the gospel with these kids in that situation? It's really hard. I got to be really careful, right? I can't stand up here and preach the gospel to the kids on my team. I can't. I get fired, right? But I can do other things. I can put signs up that say entitled to nothing, grateful for everything. I can do things like that. I can live my life. They all know I'm a Christian. They all know. I tell them the first of every year, I say, here's my priority, guy. My faith, my Lord, my Savior, my family, and then you guys. At the beginning of every year, I tell them that. I can do that because that's me, right? That's who I am. So I tell them that every year. And I say, I'm sorry, you're third, but actually I spend more time with you than I do with the other two combined, okay? So that's just reality, right? But they know where I'm coming from, and I make sure that balance. I want these guys to have balance in their lives. I don't want them to be obsessive. I tell them all the time, you can be obsessive about one thing and passionate about several. I want them to be passionate about several things, okay? And I mention things like your faith, your family, your schoolwork, your sport, right? That's another way I can put that in there, right? And so I want that balance so they can bring the best that they have to each thing that they do. It's really, really important, and they're cognizant of that. They know that I am. Hard work. You saw it. You saw it. You want those guys on your side, believe me. They work really hard, and they will go through a wall for us as coaches, mainly because we care, right? And we show them respect, and we respect who they are. So all that yelling you heard on there, it was all like, go, 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 yeah, 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 right? It was never like, you suck, right? Yelling that. Or you're awful, yelling that. If I talk to them, I'll say as a group, that's not good enough, you guys. There's more. You can do this. But I never yell it, right? I never use profanity, ever. I don't allow my coaching staff to use profanity. And with the way I talk about that, I say, we're not going to use profanity. Me, because of my faith, I'm not using profanity. Everybody else, if it's not your faith, it's because you can find a better way to communicate. You have a better vocabulary than that. So don't use profanity. If you offend one person, you offend one too many, right? So I taught my staff about that, and the kids, I don't allow them to use profanity either. right, around the boathouse. I'm sure they do other places, but not around the boathouse, right? So that hard work, that sustenance of hard work and making sure it happens well every day, that's huge. And then the servanthood is another place I can get in my faith, that I'm a servant leader, I'm not a dictator going like this, right? So after practice today, we had all this, the water was way down over the last month. We had a drought, so we had to push the dock further and further and further out from the banks. So we had all these pallets that we had to put between our normal place and the dock so we wouldn't be in the mud, right? Pallets and plywood and pallets and plywood and screw it down to the pallets and stuff like that so we could get to the dock, right? So now the water went back up, we pulled it back up, hooked it back up, we had all this stuff that we'd use. So I said, all right, guys, farm girl time, let's go, right? So we have a kind of a joke. I'm a farm boy from Indiana, right? So about as far from elitist that some people think rowing is, like for me it ain't, right? It's about hard work. So I say farm girl. So they get their status with me is to get up the farm girl ladder as far as you can, right? So you do stuff that's really cool, like hauling pallets and plywood around, and doing things that, this one kid on my team is an engineer, learned to weld the other day. I'm going, wow, you just went halfway to farm girl status by learning how to weld, okay? So people go, oh, I want to be a farm girl. I go, well, you got a long ways to go, girl, right? You got to do a lot more than that, right? So there's things like that where they see that they want to be a farm girl. They want to get to farm girl, right? And so me saying okay, farm girl job, let's go. I'm down there hauling this stuff with them. I'm not dictating. I'm getting muddy and dirty and whatever with my coveralls on, and I'm hauling this stuff with them. They know that, I built the boathouse at UVA with my own hands, right? They know that, So those are the kind of things that when you show that servanthood, it's huge. And it goes a long ways for them to be able to see what your vision is and then follow that vision, all right? So all of these things right here are really important in how I approach my job, okay? So step back from that a little bit, or step forward from that a little bit. My testimony. So I said I was a farm boy from Indiana, right? And awful childhood, awful. Like divorce and alcoholism and drug abuse, just all crazy, right? But I learned how to work hard when I was a kid. Baling hay, right? Cutting grass, throwing hay bales into barns when I was, 10 to 13. We got a penny a bale for every bale of hay we got out of the field onto a trailer, back to the barn, and in the barn, 1 penny per bale. Some of you guys are old enough to know that was pretty good money 50 years ago, okay? But the thing is that the family life was awful, okay? I didn't know the Lord when I was small. We didn't go to church. It was a mess. I moved away from my home when I was 15 years old. I couldn't take it anymore. So I moved in with a couple relatives here, and then I moved from them to another relatives there, and I ended up with my dad, who was divorced from my mom, all right, for the last couple years of high school, all right? And that was kind of the saving grace for me at the time to have at least a little stability. One of my brothers died from alcohol and heroin abuse at age 48, about 5 years ago. The other brother that I have is in federal prison in Tennessee for rape, 25 years, heroin addict, okay? When he was on heroin, raped somebody and got committed to a federal penitentiary in Tennessee. He's got 15 years to go, right? That's the kind of background, right? So the thing that the Lord was with me was patient, very, very patient. I had one relative that prayed for me every day, and that was my grandmother. I didn't know it until she was on her deathbed. She didn't tell me. So I'm sitting there squeezing her hand. She's dying, and she looks up at me and says, I just want you to know, Kevin, I prayed for you every day, right? I get emotional about it right now, and that was 20 years ago that she died. And so that meant a lot to me, right? A lot. So I go to college, right? I went to college to play football at Purdue in Indiana, and I got injured pretty badly, and I couldn't play anymore. And so somebody said, you ought to try rowing. We were awful. I tried rowing. I was pretty good at it. Made a few national teams and that kind of stuff, but that was my next step, right? Is like I found something that I could sink my teeth into, and that was rowing, right? Something I was good at, something I could do it. Football was over for me, so this was another saving grace for me was that at the time. But then there was this guy, all right, that I was starting to go the path of my brothers, right? And this guy, and I never saw him before this, and I never saw him again, okay? And so you can take what you want with that, all right? It was at a party, and I was doing some things that wasn't very good. I was a sophomore in college, right? And he comes up to me, and he grabs me by the earlobes and squeezed my earlobes and says, there's more to you, kid. There's more to you. Don't throw your life away. right that, and like squeezed my earlobe so hard, it felt like he was getting a knife into him, right? That hard. And he's a pretty big guy, so I didn't fight him, right? So, but anyway, so I listened to him, and I zoomed in on his eyes, and then he walked away, and I never saw him again. And I hadn't ever seen him before. He just walked up to me and grabbed. How many people would do that? Grab you in the earlobes and never seen you before, right? So who was that? Who was that? Okay? About a month later, okay, I was interested in this girl, and she was a Christian. And she said, we're going to Campus House. It's like a campus house, a faith house on campus at Purdue. And so I go, she was good looking. I was interested in it. Okay, I'll go, right? That was an introduction, right? An introduction to faith that I hadn't had before. We parted ways after a couple of months, but the seed was planted. I kept going to that, right? I kept going to that campus house and just sitting there, just listening. Holy Spirit was working. He was working on me big time. I didn't know it at the time. Kept working on me. Patience. God had patience. The Lord had patience for me. I meet my future wife, right? She was a Christian, and this is just a blessing that we got married without me we dated and we got married without me being a Christian. And I asked her about that. She goes, I thought you would be, so I was going to take a chance, right? I thought you were going to find the Lord, and I was going to be a part of that. I don't know what you think about that by dating and marrying someone that's not in the faith, but she did, and it was a blessing for me. And so after about 3 years of marriage, I've been talking to this guy at Campus House again. I was coaching at Purdue and we were living there. And so I went there and I talked to him more and more and more. And then one night I woke up at 1 a.m, like bolts upright in bed. Now I wake up at 1 because I have to pee. But then it was just like way up, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Some of you guys? Yeah, All right, so woke up, didn't have to pee, woke straight up in bed. Lord was like on my heart. I call this guy up at 1 o'clock and I go, I want to have the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. He goes, meet me at this church in 30 minutes. And I went there. He baptized me in the Holy Spirit right then. Bang, wham, in the pool, out. Unbelievable. Okay? The very next day, I go to practice. Okay? Go through the whole practice, 2.5 hours. Right? Get off the water. Okay? I'm coaching at Purdue. 3 or 4 of the kids on the team come up to me and say, Kevin, what's going on? Coach, what's going on? I go, what? They go, you didn't swear at all the whole practice. And I swore like a sailor before that, all right? Hope you guys know you guys are sailors, all right? But anyway, then I'm going like, oh my gosh, I didn't. Christ cleansed me of profanity that night when I got dunked. I didn't even know it. And some people say like lightning bolts and all this kind of stuff, and some people slower and like that. But for me, it was, he cleansed me of profanity on that evening when I got dunked, right? Right away, and I didn't even know it. And the guys on the team knew it. It was so bizarre change in me. So that was my beginning, and I was 28 years old, all right, at that time. 28 years old. We had a child, had a boy, another girl. I was now coaching at Yale. Okay, we moved from Purdue to Yale because Purdue was a part-time, $5,000 a year. I was building houses on the side, supporting my coaching habit. We get an opportunity to go to Yale. You think about coming from a farm boy from Indiana going to Yale. You talk about culture shock. Holy, unbelievable culture shock. And so we were there for 3 years. Our second child was born at Yale, first in Indiana. Second child was born at Yale. Our third child was born at Yale. All right, and after 3 years at Yale, we had a lot of success. We beat Harvard in the Harvard-Yale race, all this kind of stuff. And at the banquet after that race, I announced to the team with the head coach there. I was the freshman coach. The head coach was there. And I said, guys, I'm leaving Yale. Right? I'm really sorry, but I'm leaving Yale. We're going back to Indiana. We're going home. Right? And the head coach was shocked. I was shocked that I said it. Right? I go home. I tell my wife. I say, I quit. She goes, you quit what? I go, I quit coaching at Yale. And she goes, no, you didn't. Go back and tell them you unquit, right? Okay? And I go, no, I already quit. It's over. It's done, And she goes, what? Why? Why did you do that? And I told her, I don't know. I have no idea. No idea why I quit. So it was literally like the Beverly Hillbillies. We moved back to Indiana, moved into the basement of her parents' house in Indiana, right? We had no money. It was like we had our car and a trailer and like stuff on the top, stuff on the sides of the trailer, stuff strapped to the back of the trailer. It really looked like Beverly Hillbillies, okay? We go back. Our little girl was 6 months old at the time. Our third child was 6 months old. We get to Indiana, right? And she gets sick, like she crashed, 6 months old, stopped breathing, everything, just like we had to resuscitate her, got her to the hospital right away, was able to keep her alive, put her on a breathing machine and that type of thing, and we didn't know what was wrong. All these specialists coming in, all this kind of stuff, had no idea what was wrong. So after about 2 weeks, we're in Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. All right, I got a job working in Indianapolis. The Pan American Games were in '87. This is '85. So I got a job in Indianapolis doing the Pan American Games for rowing and setting that all up. So I had a job. But anyway, so we're in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, and this metabolic specialist comes in and says, you know what, I've been studying this case. I think I know what it may be, right? And so we said, what? And it's this long word that my wife can tell you, but it's called Lee's disease. She said, there's only one place in the world that tests for this disease. And we go, where's that? Yale New Haven Hospital, where she was born. So we got some material from her that we sent back to Yale, came back, said, yes, she has Lee's disease. One of 50 in the world that has it. 50 people. It's a degenerative disease in the cerebellum. It's an enzyme deficiency that we are both carriers of. 1 in 90,000 chance of us getting together and having a child, right? No hope. No hope. So we moved her. I was able to coach at Purdue again. I was combining the two jobs, so we moved to Purdue. Had a lot of friends there. And the reason I say this to you guys is that when she got sick initially, we were at home with her parents and family around, okay, when she got sick. And we had friends and family up at Purdue as well. If we'd have been at Yale when she got sick, we wouldn't have had any support at all. Zero support. So people say, why'd you quit? Well, I know why I quit now. The Lord made me quit. He said, I know what's happening. You need to go home, And we did, and we had all this support around home, both in Indianapolis and then at Purdue and that type of thing. And we moved up. We knew that she was not long for this earth, and we prayed about it. We asked for healing. The Lord chose not to do that. And so we knew that she was close to dying, and she was on complete, mechanical. She was kept alive by mechanical. There's nothing else that was keeping her alive. And so we had this one incident, and this is really key, is that when we had to take the breathing tube out and clean it and stuff like that, if anybody's ever done anything like that, and then put it back in. Well, one time when we did it all ourselves, my wife became a nurse because of this, because of the experience she had with this and the nurses that were so great for us. But anyway, we took it out and we were cleaning it, and she wasn't breathing on her own. And all of a sudden, while we're cleaning her breathing tube, she started breathing spontaneously on her own. She started breathing. And we're going like, what? What's going on? What's happening? And we're just we're watching her breathe for a couple of minutes, and then we got scared, and we said, well, we can't, we got to put the breathing tube back on, right? And so we believe in our hearts and our souls that it was the Lord saying, I'm in control. I'm in control, And so we put the breathing tube back on, and the next time that we took her out, she didn't breathe on her own. The next few times, that type of thing. So we had to make a tough decision. It's what are we doing here, And she's being kept alive. We prayed for healing and that type of thing, and we had to make a decision that we would take her off the life support, And still the hardest decision in our lives ever, but we did it. And so my wife and I and the doctor and nurse were in this room when we decided to do it. It was just us four with Megan. And my wife hands me this 10-month-old baby, that used to smile at me with the biggest, smile. And I have a picture of holding her like this with her smiling, like the camera coming in on her face, this big smile at 6 months old before she got sick. She said, I want you to hold her, right? And I go, what? No, you're the mom. You need to hold her when we do this, when she dies. She goes, no. No, you need to hold her. And I'm going I was incredulous. I couldn't believe it. So she gives me Megan. I hold her, and we take the apparatus off. We're both crying like crazy, of course. And then she take it out. She didn't start breathing. She dies. And then This is, you talk about sealing your faith. This bright light, I'm holding her when she dies, this bright light, just like, and Jesus is right there in front of me like this, holding his hands out, his arms out. And I'm saying to my wife, I'm saying, do you see him? Do you see him? You know, and she goes, see who? What are you talking about? She didn't see him, right? I saw him. I saw Jesus. That's why she gave Megan to me to hold, right? It was 32 years ago. That's why she gave Megan to me to hold, right? Because I saw him, you know, and he reached out for her, right? And it was so real that I had her in my arms and I went like this to him, you know? It was just the most amazing, spiritual, powerful thing that a human could imagine, right? Anything different than that, anything better than that is when we see him, you know, when we die, when we go to see him in heaven. And so if there is any doubt in my mind about my faith, about who I am and who he is and what he wants for me, it was like erased. You know, there was no doubt. And when I think about any time that I waver or I start to backslide, or if I don't do my reading, if I don't have a relationship with him that's like I should, I think of that. He brings that image back to me every time. And so when I talk about why I do things and why I do this sport and why I try to lead these women, right, in my situation, it's for him. He's given me a gift that I'm going to use as best as I can, right? I have a gift of coaching. I have a gift of communication. I have a gift of driving people to excellence, whatever it is, right? I'm trying to be humble here. But you know, whatever that gift that he gave me, right, I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. And when I talk to my kids about this, my own children, my grandchildren, I have 3 grandchildren, Kevin, Colby, and Nate, that live in Charlottesville. You talk about being blessed. You people that are grandparents that have all your grandkids close by, you can't get any more blessing than that. Where's that coming, right? You can't, right? Where's that coming from? We've been blessed by Jesus Christ in such a way, it's amazing. And so when I talk to my kids, my other daughters, right, about the fact that if you've been blessed with something, this is another way that I get faith in there. I say, God's given you a gift. Use it with everything you have, right? I can say stuff like that, and I do, right? Do everything. You've been gifted with something. Take that gift and work it as hard as you can and as well as you can, right? And those are the kind of things that I try to impart on these guys from a leadership position. And so for me, it's one of those things where that I'm always going to be that way as long as I'm breathing. And then obviously, again, when I'm not, when I'm with him. But I'm going to impart that as much as I can each and every day to those that are around me and those that will listen. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And I really appreciate your listening to it. Thank you.